Decades ago, a man found the entrance to Kunlun Void, and after meeting me he requested that I forge a type of standard straight knife that would never break. Western Queen Mother recalled, "We in Kunlun excel at forging swords but not knives." I initially refused, but that man knelt at the gate of my jade pool for 7 days and 7 nights. Moved by his sincerity and his patriotic intentions, I agreed to forge knives for him during my spare time from sword making. Since then, every 10 years I would forge a batch of star knives and have Pearl Soul deliver them outside Kunlun Void. Up until now there should be several thousand blades. Hearing this, Lin Chia couldn't help but ask, "Who was that man?" "His name was Nye Jinshan." Lin Chia murmured this name, feeling it was somewhat familiar. Nye Jinshan. The first commander-in-chief of the Great Xia Night Watchers, Nye Jinshan? While at the Night Watchers headquarters, he had read about the lives of all past commanders-in-chief. This Nye Jinshan was originally the leader of Great Xia's 139 Special Biological Response Team. Shortly after the mist descended, he established the Night Watchers based on the 139 Special Biological Response Team. Back when the Night Watchers were just founded, Commander Nye had already found Kunlun Void and personally met the Western Queen Mother's avatar, and even obtained the star knives. No wonder the Night Watchers always emphasized that regardless of the situation, the star knife in hand was a reliable weapon. Even Commander Yi from years ago and the current commanders will have always used this knife, and it has never broken even in battles against gods. How could a knife forged by the Western Queen Mother herself easily break unless a supreme god personally intervened? Lin Chia's heart was filled with admiration and gratitude for Commander-in-Chief Nye. Only at this moment did he truly realize that the portraits of past commanders hanging in the Night Watchers' headquarters represented more than just a position. In their respective eras, they all used their shoulders to support the entire sky of Great Xia. Lin Chia's gaze swept across the messy Dan Palace, and he spoke somewhat helplessly. "Your Majesty, the immortality pill was taken by them." The Western Queen Mother calmly said, "They cannot take it away." With a slight lift of her fingertip, the numerous pill containers scattered on the floor of the Dan Palace simultaneously rose into the air, swiftly moving through space, returning to their original positions. In just a moment the Dan Palace was restored to its original state. Just then, the Western Queen Mother seemed to discover something, frowned, and her gaze fell on a dark green pill container in the corner of the Dan Palace. With a wave of her hand, the container landed in her palm. The lid opened slightly, revealing that the container was empty. The soul-devouring poison pill that was originally stored inside had completely disappeared. The Western Queen Mother narrowed her beautiful eyes, staring at the empty container, lost in thought. "Your Majesty, why is the immortality pill container empty?" After much internal struggle, Lin Chia finally asked this question. The Western Queen Mother casually placed the empty dark green container back in the air and said indifferently, "The immortality pill has not been in the jade pool for 2,000 years. Hearing this, Lin Chia's heart skipped a beat, and a certain speculation in his mind became increasingly clear. Immortality pill, immortality, 2,000 years ago. The name of this pill was the same as Jialon's King Void, and the time when the pill was taken perfectly coincided with when Jialon obtained immortality. Was it a coincidence? What happened back then? Lin Chia asked tentatively. The Western Queen Mother frowned slightly but did not answer his question. She merely gently rubbed the string of jade beads. If observed carefully, one could notice that the spacing between the 6 jade beads was somewhat strange, with a gap between 2 of them as if one bead was missing. Lin Chia knew he had asked something he shouldn't have, so he didn't pursue it further. Instead he proactively said, "I have a matter I'd like your Majesty to clarify." "Speak." "I have a friend named Jialon now." Upon hearing the name Jialon, the Western Queen Mother's eyes trembled slightly, though her expression remained unchanged as she continued to calmly listen to Lin Chia's words. Lin Chia explained Jialon's abilities and the current predicament in full, then earnestly asked, "So, I want to know the method to awaken her early. Your Kunlun mirror involves the power of time and space, perhaps." Before Lin Chia could finish, the Western Queen Mother shook her head. "The Kunlun mirror can only capture time and replay it. It cannot utilize such an enormous amount of time to accelerate her awakening." Lin Chia fell silent. "Even the Kunlun mirror won't work. Then may I ask your Majesty, where should I go to find a way to awaken her?" The Western Queen Mother let out a long sigh. Those beautiful eyes gazed at Lin Chia for a moment, then she shook her head slightly, turned around and walked out of the Dan Palace. The hem of her gold-threaded purple divine robe swept across the ancient threshold, and the next moment her figure disappeared without a trace. In the vast Dan Palace, only Lin Chia remained standing alone. He was stunned for a long while, confusion appearing in his eyes. The Western Queen Mother's reaction puzzled him. If she knew, she should say so. If she didn't know, she should say she didn't know. Instead, she just looked at him without a word and then left. What was that about? Lin Chia pondered for a long time but couldn't come up with an answer. He simply shook his head and flew directly toward the mountain peak where his guest room was located. Pamir Plateau. In the endless snowstorm, a black light burst from the void, and Loki's figure staggered out, his black clothes already covered in blood. He wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, looked back at the nothingness behind him, and a cold smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. I told you with just one avatar you can't kill me. Now that all the gods of Great Xia have left their nests, who within Great Xia's borders can stop me? He took a deep breath, stepped forward and walked straight toward the border of Great Xia. After just a few steps in the distant snowstorm, a bright car headlight broke through the falling snowflakes, slowly approaching from afar. Beep beep beep. The moment the familiar horn sound appeared, a certain unpleasant memory suddenly surfaced in Loki's mind and his body froze. A look of astonishment appeared on his face. Through the snowstorm, a yellow electric scooter roared out. A young man wearing a helmet and uniform was seriously driving the electric scooter. On the seat behind him sat a figure wearing a dark red cloak with a straight knife at his waist. Suiqing, sitting in the back seat, raised an eyebrow when he saw the injured Loki. Is it him? It's him, Lu Wuwei said with certainty. He took out a receipt from his pocket. At the bottom of the receipt, in the recipient's name field, 2 characters were neatly written. Loki. Suiqing calmly jumped off the vehicle, his right hand resting on the straight knife at his waist, his eyes slightly narrowed. Lu Wuwei made a sudden stop, blocking Loki's path with the electric scooter, and silently opened his helmet. Loki, god of mischief, Lu Wuwei said calmly. We meet again. Pamir Plateau. Mount Conger. Loki is here. In the temporary base at the mountain peak, Bai Li Pangpang listened to Qingyu's description and widened his eyes in shock. Holy shit. Beside him, Chao Yuan's expression was extremely grave. What about 7 Nights? Is he okay? And Qingyu sat cross-legged on the ground, trimming his wild-looking fingernails while answering, I didn't see him in Kunlun Void, but now Commander Zhua and Mr. Lu are jointly pursuing Loki, so nothing bad should happen. Hearing this, the other 3 people present all breathed sighs of relief. With only a few hours left on the final day of the recruits' journey across the Pamir Plateau, those who hadn't been eliminated had all entered the last stretch of the route. Once they traversed the final few kilometers, they would begin climbing Mount Conger. Those responsible for the earlier segments of the journey, including Jiang Er and others, had all returned to the temporary base on Mount Conger. Only Shen Qingzhu remained at the summit, overseeing the final checkpoint. But it's been several days already. Why hasn't 7 Nights returned yet? Bai Li Pangpang's face was still filled with worry. The situation in Kunlun Void is far more complex than we imagined. Perhaps he encountered some opportunity there, and Qingyu calmly replied, recalling the gathering of immortals at the Peach Banquet in his mind. The recruits are about to finish their assessment soon. If 7 Nights doesn't return to take charge, things might get difficult. By the way, what about those eliminated recruits? Still volunteering at the Border Defense Company. Bai Li Pangpang peeled a segment of tangerine, put it in his mouth and sighed, who knows how many of them have had their enlightenment after so many days. Western border of Great Xia. Kayesh Border Defense Company. Bone-chilling wind howled from the edge of the barren land, stirring up fine dust and mercilessly slapping against Suge's reddened cheeks. He wore a thick military cap and carried a rifle. His lips trembled slightly in the cold wind. In just a few days, his once fair and delicate face had become rough and weathered. His Adam's apple bobbed as he swallowed, with hunger constantly surging. He wanted to look down to check the time, but his neck was painfully stiff. Just then, a hand patted him on the shoulder. Shift change, rookie. Go get some food. Hearing this voice, Suja felt immensely relieved. While stretching his muscles, he turned to smile at the similarly uniformed border soldier behind him. "Thanks for your hard work." The soldier waved his hand dismissively, his face slightly reddened from the high altitude, and smiled faintly. The famished Suja quickly rushed into the canteen, took a metal tray from the rack, got some slightly cold dishes, and sat down alone at a table to devour his meal ravenously. "Slow down, you look like a starving ghost," Suyuan said, carrying his tray and sitting across from him, silently rolling his eyes. "I never saw you this hungry at the training camp." "That was different. At the training camp, eating Instructor Anne's special fish cakes kept you from feeling hungry even after training all day." Suja pointed at the food on his plate. "The food here has too little nutrition." Suyuan didn't respond, just picked up his chopsticks and began eating silently. "By the way, tomorrow should be the last day of the assessment," Suja said, as if suddenly remembering something, wiping the corner of his mouth. After tomorrow, what are your plans?" Suyuan's hand holding the chopsticks paused slightly. "I don't know. Do you think we'll really be sent back home?" Suja looked around, speaking with confusion. "If we truly have no hope of staying, why did Instructor Lin send us here? What does he want to do?" "Instructor Lin said that after elimination, the real lessons are just beginning," Suyuan said calmly. "He must be trying to convey something to us through this place." Before they could finish speaking, a voice came from behind them. "You two siblings really get along well." A middle-aged man with high cheekbones and a round, honest face smiled and sat down beside them. Suja knew this man. His name was Ku Chonglin, who slept in the bunk above his. He was a soldier at this border defense company, and it was he who personally showed Suja around when he first arrived. Ku Chonglin took out a piece of oiled paper from his pocket, placed it on the table and opened it, revealing several baked flatbreads. "My Anna just came to visit me and brought some homemade milk cakes. Try some." "Anna." Suyuan heard these two words with confusion. "It means mother," Suja explained. "Uncle Chonglin's mother is from an ethnic minority, his father is Han Chinese, and he grew up on the plateau." Suyuan nodded, politely thanked him and took a flatbread to taste. "Tell me, why did two delicate young people like you come to volunteer with us?" Ku Chonglin watched Suyuan's refined eating manner and couldn't help but smile. "The border is bitter and cold, conditions are poor, most people can't wait to avoid it. Young folks like you who actively come here I've never seen before." Suyuan and Suja exchanged glances, tacitly avoiding this sensitive question, and instead asked. "We're just volunteers, but Uncle Chonglin, you know how bad the conditions are, so why did you come to guard the border?" Ku Chonglin smiled. "Me? My home is right on this plateau just over that mountain. I'm close to them here, so it's convenient for Anna to visit me. Besides, as you know, this mist has covered the border for so long, who knows what strange things might rush out from inside. With me guarding here, my Anna and two younger brothers can live more peacefully." "What might come out of the mist?" Suyuan asked, feigning ignorance. The Border Defense Company wasn't a special organization like the Night Watchers that specifically dealt with mysteries. It was just a military border checkpoint that had been responsible for guarding the national border for over 100 years, even before the mist descended. The soldiers stationed here weren't superhumans with forbidden domains, but ordinary people trained by the military, who didn't even know about the existence of mysteries and deities. "Who knows?" Ku Chonglin shrugged. "The news says all creatures in the mist have died out, but looking at such a large expanse of mist every day, it always feels creepy. It's that kind of fear of the unknown, always feeling like some monster might suddenly jump out." Suja nodded and couldn't help asking, "But monsters that could rush out of the mist would be terrifying, right? Could our firepower here kill them?" "Even if we can't kill them, we have to try." Ku Chonglin slapped the table and pointed behind him with his other hand. "If the border is breached, what will happen to my family?" Suja froze in place. Seemingly realizing that his table-slapping gesture was a bit too forceful, Ku Chonglin coughed lightly, unconsciously touching the table surface, and continued. "Sorry, I got a bit excited. Mainly because I've been having nightmares these past few days, dreaming of things running out from the mist, so I'm a bit sensitive about this. Anyway, I'll go change shifts now. You should eat these pancakes while they're hot, they'll get cold soon." Ku Chonglin stood up from his seat, waved at the Suzhou and Suyuan siblings, wrapped his military coat tightly around himself, and walked toward the bitterly cold outdoors. Snowflakes drifted through the gaps in the soft plastic door curtain. Suja stared at the baked pancake on the table, falling silent. What's wrong with you? Seeing Suja frozen, Siyuan asked. Oh, nothing. Suja came back to his senses, shook his head, reached for the pancake on the table and stuffed a big bite into his mouth. How does it taste? Very fragrant. Suja chewed the baked pancake as if remembering something, fell silent. Just a little worse than the pancakes Mom used to make. Lin Chia's figure slowly descended onto the mountain peak. Seeing Lin Chia return, the bored Nez's eyes immediately lit up. He rushed to Lin Chia and asked eagerly. I just saw the queen take action herself. What happened? Nearby, Yang Jian also opened his eyes and looked toward Lin Chia. Lin Chia smiled helplessly and recounted everything he had witnessed. The immortality pill was stolen? Nez's brows slightly furrowed. What exactly is this immortality pill? Lin Chia asked. The immortality pill was a divine pill refined by Ling Bao Tianzuan thousands of years ago. Yang Jian's voice came from the side. It is said that Ling Bao Tianzuan refined this pill to survive a great calamity of heaven and earth. But after the pill was completed, heavenly lightning struck and split the pill in half. Yes, I heard my master mention it too. Neza nodded repeatedly, then continued. According to legend, when Ling Bao Tianzuan saw the pill split by lightning, his face immediately changed color, because the original purpose of refining this pill was to survive the great calamity. The lightning destroying the pill meant that this calamity was extremely dangerous and couldn't be overcome by external means. After that, Ling Bao Tianzuan secluded himself for 1,000 years, seeking methods to survive the calamity. Hearing this, Lin Chia's brows furrowed. A calamity that even the 3 Tianzuan of Great Xia couldn't handle? What exactly could that be? Then what happened? Did he find a way? I don't know. Yang Jian shook his head slightly. After Ling Bao Tianzuan went into seclusion, he vanished without a trace. Even we have never seen him. We only know that later Yuanshi Tianzuan took the split immortality pill and stored it in the jade pool of Kunlun Void. Lin Chia nodded thoughtfully. Do you know who took the immortality pill? Hearing this, Yang Jian and Neza were both stunned. The immortality pill was taken? Neza asked in surprise. When did this happen? Seeing their reactions, Lin Chia's brows furrowed even more. The immortality pill had been taken 2,000 years ago, as the Queen Mother of the West had told him personally, yet Yang Jian and Neza didn't know? This meant that the loss of the immortality pill was a secret within Kunlun Void? Yes, back in the pill hall, when the yellow-dressed maid asked him to seize the pill, she said, don't let her take the immortality pill, rather than, don't let her take the immortality pill container. If the yellow-dressed maid had known the immortality pill container was empty, she would have directly asked Lin Chia to seize the immortality pill container. This way, Si Xiaonan wouldn't have gotten the immortality pill first. Seizing an empty container would be meaningless for the jade pool. Even Zhu Hun, who accompanied the Queen Mother of the West, didn't know the truth about the lost immortality pill? About 2,000 years ago, Lin Chia pondered for a moment, then asked, did anything unusual happen at the jade pool during that time? 2,000 years ago. I wasn't even a god yet. Neza scratched his head and turned to Yang Jian. Yang Jian, do you know? Yang Jian narrowed his eyes, thought for a moment and said, 2,000 years ago, for unknown reasons, the Queen Mother personally bloodied the jade pool. All the celestial soldiers, generals, and even the maids and divine birds of the jade pool were killed without exception. Blood soaked the soil of the peach garden, turning the entire jade pool crimson. This incident even alarmed the 2 Tianzuan. They sealed the jade pool with their divine arts for 3 days and 3 nights before the turmoil subsided. However, the reason why the queen bloodied the jade pool that year remains unknown. Perhaps only she herself and the 2 Tianzuan know. The Queen Mother of the West personally bloodied the jade pool? What connection did this have with the loss of the immortality pill? And what connection did it have with Jialan's appearance? Lin Chia felt that everything before him had become mysterious again. By the way, why haven't we disappeared after so many days? Neza seemed to remember something and looked at his hands in confusion. Isn't this time shadow lasting a bit too long? Lin Chia came back to his senses, shook his head and said, perhaps the queen is just bored. Halfway through his sentence, Lin Chia froze. That's not right. The peach banquet has already ended, and besides Yang Jian and Neza before him, there shouldn't be any other great Xia gods in the jade pool. Even if the Queen Mother wanted some entertainment, she wouldn't choose this time, would she? Moreover, Loki just attacked the jade pool. How could she be bored now? I'm not sure either, Lin Chia sighed. His mind was in chaos with various pieces of information intertwined without any clue. It's about time for me to leave Kunlun Void and return to the real world. Only a few hours remained until the last day of the 7-day assessment. He had to return before the new recruits finished. Lin Chia turned his head, looking at Yang Jian before him with complex emotions. Yang Jian nodded slightly. Go. See you in the future. Lin Chia seemed to want to say something more, but finally just said 4 words. See you in future. And me too. Neza waved at him, smiling. See you in the future. When you become a god, let's have a good fight. Lin Chia smiled, turned around and flew toward the exit of Kunlun Void. Just as his right foot took a step, Kunlun Void beneath his feet began to shake violently. Lin Chia, Yang Jian and Neza were startled simultaneously. An earthquake? Can there be earthquakes in Yaoqi? Lin Chia turned to look around and discovered that not only was this suspended mountain peak shaking violently, but other mountains floating in the air had also begun to tremble. A deep rumbling sound came from below, as if some terrifying entity was about to emerge. Yang Jian frowned, opening the vertical eye on his forehead. His gaze penetrated Yaoqi, falling directly on the stretching Kunlun mountains below. The once bird-filled, flower-fragrant lush mountains receded like the tide, exposing gray-white barren mountain surfaces to the air. Countless ancient swords emanating a cold, chilling light grew like thorns between the mountain ranges. A corner of the beautiful time silhouette was lifted, revealing sword light shooting straight toward the sky. Swords? Where did so many swords come from in Kunlun? There must be at least 10 million of them. Neza looked at the area below Yaoqi in shock, at those endless sword-filled mountains, and spoke in disbelief. Yang Jian frowned as he watched this scene, shook his head and pointed at Lin Chia. These swords don't belong to the time-space where we silhouettes exist, but rather the true appearance of Kunlun in his time-space. The lush mountains we saw earlier were just an illusion created by the time silhouette. Lin Chia flew into the sky, looking at the sword-filled mountains below Yaoqi that continued to rapidly extend toward the horizon. As if remembering something, he suddenly turned toward the direction of the Queen Mother of the West's celestial palace. From Yang Jian and the others' reactions, it was clear that Kunlun wasn't like this 100 years ago, which meant that these millions of ancient swords had all been forged within the past 100 years. And during these 100 years, only the Queen Mother of the West remained in Kunlun. Lin Chia had always thought that the Queen Mother's forging knives and swords was just a hobby to pass idle time, but judging from the current scale, that wasn't the case. 100 years, one person forging 10 million swords. What exactly did the Queen Mother intend to do? Boom. Just then, a thunderous sound erupted from the sky, and a streak of light flew from outside Kunlun, rapidly shooting toward the celestial palace where the Queen Mother resided. Lin Chia looked closely and discovered that this light was none other than the Purple Subtlety Star Lord whom he had briefly met at the Peach Banquet. However, the Purple Subtlety Star Lord's face now showed none of the leisurely casualness from the Peach Banquet. His expression was anxious, and he had mobilized his divine power to the extreme, moving at an incredible speed. Before landing at the Celestial Palace, he took a deep breath and shouted loudly. Reporting to the Queen Mother. Strange mists have appeared in large quantities beyond the borders of Great Xia. Where the mist reaches, life is extinguished and all things wither. The 4 heavenly kings, the 6 Ding and 6 Jia, and the 12 zodiac stars joined forces but failed to block the mist. Their divine powers were half consumed, they fell from divine realm, and were attacked by unknown entities within the mist. They are now critically wounded. Several golden immortals, along with the Western Pure Altar Envoy and golden-bodied Arhats, are discussing defense strategies. Many immortals are on their way. We request the Queen Mother to take action and take command. Hearing these words, Yang Jian and Neza's expressions immediately changed. Lin Chia's brows furrowed tightly as if he had realized something. The descent of the mist? Great Xia's deities fighting against it? Could this time point recorded in the time silhouette be? What day is today? Lin Chia suddenly turned and asked. Neza was startled, calculated with his fingers. In human terms, today should be the 30th day of the first lunar month. Which year? The year of Xinyo. Lin Chia's mind raced. In lunar calendar terms, the Shinyo year comes once every 60 years. It was the 30th day of the first month. Converting to the solar calendar and combining it with the fact of the mist's descent, there was only one possible time point for this time silhouette. March 9, 1921. The day when the mist descended upon the world, when Great Xia's deities sacrificed their cultivation to transform into 9 national divine steels guarding the borders, blocking the mist from invading Great Xia. In other words, what textbooks called Survival Day. After the peach banquet ended, the Queen Mother had continued to maintain the time silhouette of the Kunlun mirror, just to recreate the scene within Kunlun on Survival Day. What exactly did she want to do? Yaoqi Celestial Palace. Hearing the urgent shouts of the purple subtlety Star Lord outside the palace, the Queen Mother's avatar, sitting alone in the desolate hall, slowly opened her eyes. Those cold eyes reflected the empty, deserted hall. Ripples finally appeared in her lake-like calm pupils, and her fair hands slightly curled into fists. Reminiscence, helplessness, bitterness, pain, anger. She knew well that everything happening in Kunlun was just a time silhouette captured by the Kunlun mirror, but upon hearing those words she still couldn't control her emotions. Even after 100 years, the pain and hatred rooted in her heart hadn't diminished at all. Instead, with the passage of time they had grown stronger. But after all, everything before her was just a silhouette. And like Lin Chia, as an observer outside of time, no matter what she did, she couldn't change established history. All she could do was change the future. The Queen Mother's avatar slowly closed her eyes. Above the celestial palace in the void, a Kunlun mirror slowly rotated. A beautiful woman wearing the same gold-threaded purple divine robe stood in mid-air, one hand forming a sword seal, looking down at the endless sword-filled mountains below, softly murmuring. Spiritual energy as the guide, divine soul as the blade, blood battle death intent, forge the sword to sharpen. As her murmurs sounded, the millions of ancient swords in the Kunlun mountains began to violently tremble. Outside the palace, seeing that the Queen Mother hadn't responded, the purple subtlety Star Lord was first stunned, then took a deep breath and shouted again with all his might. Please, Queen Mother, take action. Take command. Inside the celestial palace, silence still prevailed. The purple subtlety Star Lord clenched his teeth, about to shout again when the palace doors suddenly opened automatically. The Queen Mother's avatar stepped out, sighing deeply. So be it. Even if it's just an illusion. This queen shall accompany the immortals once more. As she spoke, her eyes glanced up at the Kunlun mirror above the celestial palace. In the mirror, the Queen Mother's true body, forming a sword seal with her fingers, nodded slightly. Seeing the Queen Mother emerge from the palace, the purple subtlety Star Lord found his lifeline, overjoyed. Together with the Queen Mother, they transformed into streaks of light, passing through the ancient gateway above Kunlun, and disappeared from Kunlun. Seeing this, Lin Chia and the other two exchanged glances and quickly flew after them. After passing through that ancient gate, when their vision cleared again, they saw snowstorms dancing between the stretching mountain ranges. Lin Chia's feet landed on the thick snow as he looked around, confirming they had left Kunlun and returned to the Pamir Plateau. But upon closer observation he found that the scene before him differed from when he had visited before. The snow here was thicker, human presence scarcer, and there were no footprints from previous battles on the ground around them. This wasn't the Pamir Plateau of the real world, but the western border of Great Xia 100 years ago, before the mist had fully descended. With the arrival of the Queen Mother's avatar, the time silhouette of the Kunlun mirror had similarly covered the world outside Kunlun. Where still, it seems the Queen has brought the time silhouettes from the Kunlun mirror with her. Yang Jian looked down at his hands thoughtfully. What does that mean? Neza scratched his head in confusion. Let me explain it this way. Lin Chia pondered for a moment before explaining. You and the previous peach banquet are time silhouettes projected by Queen Mother onto the real Kunlun void using the Kunlun mirror, like a realistic illusion. Originally, the time silhouettes only covered the area within Kunlun void, but as Queen Mother left that small world of Kunlun void and returned to the Pamir Plateau, the time silhouettes spread along with her. This is still the real Pamir Plateau, but we can also see everything that happened here 100 years ago, as if someone used 3D projection to cast past history onto this place. Anyway, you wouldn't understand even if I explained further. Just know that the current Pamir Plateau is where the real world and past silhouettes overlap. You mean we can see people from the future here and people from the future can see us who exist in the past? Neza finally understood. Exactly, that's right. How amazing. This is no time for marveling. Yang Jian narrowed his eyes, looking in the direction where the Queen Mother and the purple subtlety Star Lord had departed, concern appearing in his eyes. We should follow them and see what's happening at the border. As Yang Jian was about to follow, Lin Chia stepped in front of him first. Lin Chia looked at him with a complicated expression and after hesitating for a moment he spoke. Ajahn. No, Yang Jian, perhaps you don't need to get involved anymore. Yang Jian's brows furrowed in confusion. Everything happening here is just a silhouette of history. No matter what you do, you can't change the course of history. Some things don't need to happen a second time. Yang Jian and Neza didn't know what was about to happen, but Lin Chia knew very well. On Survival Day, the reason Great Xia safely survived the mist was because the gods of Great Xia sacrificed their cultivation and physical bodies, transforming into 9 national divine steels guarding the borders. Whether the man before him was his brother Ajahn or the true Lord Erlang Yang Jian of Great Xia, he didn't want to witness the tragedy again. Seeming to sense something, Yang Jian frowned and asked, "Does what's about to happen have something to do with my fall into reincarnation?" Yes. Receiving this confirmation, Yang Jian remained silent for a while, then slightly turned his head to look in the direction where Queen Mother and the others had gone. In the drifting snow, the sky beyond the western border of Great Xia was gradually being devoured by an eerie shadow. Endless mist approached Great Xia like a giant beast, opening its ferocious fangs. Vaguely, several golden divine figures could be seen rapidly flying before the mist. Yang Jian slowly closed his eyes and said calmly, "Great Xia faces calamity, the immortals face danger. Whether real or illusory, if I were to retreat in fear at this moment, how would I be different from a coward? If this is my fate, whether falling into reincarnation or perishing completely, even if repeated 10,000 times, I shall still go forth." As his words fell, Yang Jian's body erupted with dazzling silver divine light, and he transformed into a streak of light, flying toward the mist that was continuously approaching from the western border. Neza sighed and quickly flew after him. Lin Chia stood stunned for a while, a bitter smile appearing at the corner of his mouth. He wanted to follow, but after careful consideration he changed direction and headed toward Mount Conger. Although he didn't know how far these time silhouettes extended, based on the current situation, Mount Conger, not far from here, should also be within the projection range, and there were still many new recruits there. Even if the silhouettes themselves wouldn't affect reality, he still needed to go stabilize the situation first. Otherwise, if chaos erupted, no one knew what might happen. Mount Conger. The edge of the time silhouettes rapidly swept over the mountain, covering the entire mountain body and the surrounding plateau. And Qingyu, who had just finished cutting his nails, suddenly seemed to sense something. His brows furrowed as he looked toward the vast snowy mountains outside the tent, a hint of gray appearing in his eyes. "What's wrong, Qingyu?" Jiang Er noticed in Qingyu's unusual expression and asked curiously. "Something's not right." And Qingyu's frown deepened as he stood up and lifted the tent curtain to walk outside. As soon as he stepped out, 2 howling divine lights flew past him, rapidly speeding toward the western border. Vaguely he could see they were 2 divine figures wearing golden armor. Seeing this, and Qingyu suddenly froze in place. Those were Great Xia gods. Did 2 Great Xia gods just zoom past? Bai Li Pangpang and Chao Yuan quickly emerged from the tent. At the same time, in the eastern sky, several colorful rainbows streaked by one after another. Within those rainbows, all emanating terrifying spiritual energy fluctuations, were white-bearded elders riding cranes, sword-carrying Taoists treading on auspicious clouds. They crossed the sky like meteor showers, leaving all 3 men standing in place, dumbfounded. Great Xia gods? So many Great Xia gods. Bai Li Pangpang exclaimed, "Has the full-scale divine war officially begun? Where's the battlefield?" "Look." Chao Yuan stretched out his hand, pointing westward. The others turned to look, their pupils suddenly contracting. The mist that had been held back by an invisible barrier was now gone. About tens of kilometers away, a fog dozens of times denser than what they had seen before was slowly approaching the Great Xia border. An unprecedented sense of pressure weighed on everyone's hearts. When did the mist become so dense? Where's the invisible barrier? And Qingyu frowned deeply. He stared at the thick snow beneath his feet, bent down to pick up a snowflake and began to think seriously. This isn't right, everything here is fake. Fake. Bai Li Pangpang was stunned. Just as he was about to say something, a shade of night descended upon the temporary base. Chia. Bai Li Pangpang's eyes brightened when he saw Lin Chia arrive. Are you all right? I'm fine. Did you see those great xia gods? And the mist? Don't worry, Lin Chia patted his shoulder. Everything we're seeing is a time silhouette. Lin Chia explained the situation to the four of them. They looked at each other, all seeing the disbelief in each other's eyes. I can't believe such amazing things exist, Chao Yuan remarked. Anyway, the most important thing now is to protect the new recruits and also. Lin Chia's words were cut short as his peripheral vision caught something, and his voice abruptly stopped. He turned to look at the distant sky, where through the snowstorm, a golden figure wearing a kasaya was rapidly flying toward the mist, riding on a somersault cloud. Moki brother? Lin Chia instantly recognized the figure departing on the cloud, his pupils contracting slightly as he turned to tell the others. Keep the new recruits steady, I'll be right back. As his words fell, a cloud of mist rolled out beneath Lin Chia's feet, carrying his form as he rapidly gave chase. Seeing Lin Chia leave, Bai Li Pangpang and the others exchanged glances, their expressions somewhat serious. Where are the new recruits now? The fastest ones have already reached the foot of Mount Gonggur, the slower ones probably still have about half a day's journey. During this critical period we should be more cautious, and Qingyu pondered for a moment before quickly giving orders. Currently all new recruits are spread between Mount Gonggur and Kayesh Border Defense Company. Since there are more recruits at the border company, I'll go there with Jiang Er and Chao Yuan to maintain order. Pang, you stay with Brother Zhuai to guard the recruits at Mount Gonggur. If anything happens, contact by radio. Understood. No one had any objections to Qinyu's arrangements. They immediately split into two groups and flew off in different directions. At the foot of Mount Gonggur, Fang Emo planted his boots in the thick snow, slowly pulling them out as he struggled forward, an unnatural flush appearing on his pale face. After several days of trekking, even he was reaching his limit. The cold, low pressure, extreme physical exertion, plus insufficient caloric intake from food had pushed his body to the brink. He stumbled and fell into the snow. The cold snow covering his face continuously drew away his body heat, and a feeling of suffocation welled up. As he struggled to push himself up with both arms, just as he was about to stand, a strong hand grabbed the back of his collar and pulled him completely out of the snow. Huff. Fang Emo sat in the snow and turned to look, slightly startled. He saw a one-eyed young man wearing a dust-covered cold-weather jacket standing behind him, coldly looking down at him. Lu Baoyu? Fang Emo asked in surprise. You really caught up? I said I would definitely come back, Lu Baoyu said flatly, his single eye narrowing slightly. As for you, at your speed, you shouldn't have only gotten this far after so much time. Were you deliberately slowing down? Feeling the murderous intent in Lu Baoyu's eyes, Fang Emo immediately shook his head. No, I just found something along the way and went somewhere else, so I took a detour coming back. Fang Emo was telling the truth. If he hadn't caught the scent of the Kunlun Void entrance midway and changed his route to take a big detour, he would have at least climbed halfway up Mount Gonggur by now. Lu Baoyu snorted but said nothing. He withdrew his gaze from Fang Emo and stepped toward Mount Gonggur in the distance, coldly saying without looking back. Since we're back at the same starting line, let's compete again. This time I absolutely won't lose. Hearing these words, Fang Emo was stunned for a moment before a smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. The fighting spirit reignited in his tired eyes as he shakily stood up and took a deep breath. Fine, let's compete again. He stubbornly took a step forward, following closely behind Lu Baoyu. Just then a rainbow light streaked across the sky above them. The light seemed to notice something, made a slight sound of surprise and curved in the air, heading straight toward Fang Emo at the foot of Mount Gonggur. Sensing the divine power emanating from the rainbow light, Fang Mo's expression immediately changed. A god. But soon he detected a familiar aura within it. Thump thump thump. Before Fang Emo could react, Lu Baoyu, who was walking several steps ahead, narrowed his eyes, turned back and rushed to Fang Mo's side through the snow, drawing the straight knife from his waist with a clang. Lu Baoyou's blade pointed directly at the divine figure landing in the snow, like a ferocious beast bearing its fangs. Fang Yimou stood frozen in place. Strange. From the rainbow light, a Taoist riding a heterochromatic white tiger slowly emerged. He dismounted onto the snow, looking at Fang Yimou with puzzled eyes, then glanced at the white tiger beside him. How do you have the aura of a white tiger on you? The heterochromatic white tiger and Fang Yimou locked eyes, both with bewildered expressions. Who am I? Where am I? Who is he? Seemingly noticing Lu Baoyou's killing intent, Jade Tripod True Person turned to look at him, his brow slightly furrowing. An outer god's proxy, a spy who infiltrated my great Xiao? Under Jade Tripod True Person's pressure, Lu Baoyou's knife-holding hand was covered in sweat. He gripped the handle tightly, his body trembling uncontrollably. When Fang Mo's gaze moved from the white tiger to the Taoist's face, his expression turned to delight. He respectfully bowed and was about to say something when a figure emerged from the blizzard behind them. So it's Jade Tripod True Person. A fat man wearing a deep red cloak walked in front of Fang Yimou and Lu Baoyou, rubbing his hands excitedly as he spoke. Bailey Pang Pang of the Nightfall Squad greets Jade Tripod True Person. Hearing the words Jade Tripod True Person, Lu Baoyou behind him was stunned. He carefully examined the Taoist before him, his heart filled with shock. This ordinary-looking man was actually one of the 12 golden immortals from Great Xiao's mythology? While he was secretly astonished, Bailey Pang Pang in front of him had already reached out to push down his knife, while turning to Jade Tripod True Person with a smile. True Person, this child means no harm, he's just an impetuous junior. Please don't take offense. The moment Bailey Pang Pang appeared, Jade Tripod True Person's gaze had completely shifted from Lu Baoyou to him, as if pinned there, unable to move away in the slightest. Jade Tripod True Person was stunned for a moment, then shock appeared in his eyes. You are True Person. Before he could finish, Bailey Pang Pang spoke again. Listen, the thunder is rumbling in the west. Rumble. Deep thunder came from the direction of the misty western border. Jade Tripod True Person turned to look and saw the thunder god and lightning goddess standing in the clouds, using thunderbolts to strike the mist entity, yet unable to stop its spread at all. Jade Tripod True Person looked back and stared at Bailey Pang Pang for a long time, as if understanding something, and nodded. I see. Then I shall take my leave. With those words he raised his hand in a Taoist salute, mounted the white tiger again, and flew toward the distant mist as a rainbow light. After Jade Tripod True Person's figure completely disappeared from view, Bailey Pang Pang patted the snow off his deep red cloak, turned to look at Fang Yimou and Lu Baoyou and smiled slightly. All right, you two continue. I'll wait for you at the peak of Mount Gongar. Kyushu Border Defense Company. Suja sat alone on the top of the dormitory building, wrapped in a heavy military coat, staring blankly at the distant mountain ranges. I was wondering where you were. Looked all over the dormitory but couldn't find you. So you came up here by yourself. Ko Chonglin's voice came from behind. He walked to Suja's side, patted him on the shoulder and sat down. Usually at this time, you should be sound asleep in bed, right? Something on your mind today? Suja smiled helplessly. I guess so. I just miss my mom a bit. Ko Chonglin looked at him quietly, waiting for him to continue. At times like this, being a listener was far more appropriate than being an advisor. Back then my mom was amazing. She was the best police officer in our city. Beautiful, tough in a fight. 2 or 3 male officers together couldn't beat her. Most importantly, she was an incredible cook. Let me tell you, the pancakes my mom made were just as good as your Anna's, really. Suja seemed to recall something, a smile appearing at the corners of his mouth. Back then, there was a rumor in our city's police station and several neighboring ones that she was the culinary goddess Police Beauty. The thing my sister and I looked forward to most was parent-teacher conferences. You have no idea how glorious it was when my mom walked into the classroom in her police uniform, looking so valiant. Even though my grades were always at the bottom and I'd inevitably get a beating when I got home, it was worth it. After all, for me, parent-teacher conferences were just opportunities to show off my mom. Suja's smile grew increasingly radiant. He sat there grinning foolishly for a long time, then fell silent. And then, Ko Chonglin couldn't help but ask. Then she died. Shot in the heart by a drug dealer during a firefight. She didn't even make it to the emergency room. Ko Changlin froze. Suja gazed into the distance, took a deep breath, bitterness appearing in his eyes. After my mom's accident, my sister and I relied on each other to survive. With government subsidies and a series of preferential policies, we lived fairly well. During that time I became increasingly depressed. I stopped going to school and just stayed at home all day eating and drinking like a waste of space. But my sister seemed to become a different person. When she was little, my sister loved drawing and Latin dance the most. She was very obedient, very well behaved, and spoke gently. But after that incident she started getting into extreme sports. She went free climbing, cross deserts, skydiving. We had several big arguments about it. You know, she never used to argue with me before. Now that stubbornness of hers, that look in her eyes, is becoming more and more like my mom back then. This time when she received the received the military orders, she didn't hesitate at all. Just packed her bags, ready to shoulder greater responsibilities like mom did, to protect more people. Suja paused, letting out a long sigh. But I don't want her to be like that. My mom already sacrificed herself for her duty to protect others. I don't want my sister to follow in her footsteps. I know this thinking is weak and selfish. But now my sister is my whole world. I don't have that selfless desire to protect others like they do. I just want to protect my sister, and that's enough. Uncle Changlin, someone like me, even if I became a guardian of a region, I'd just be a selfish anomaly. I don't have that noble, selfless belief in defending the country. Perhaps I don't belong here at all. Suja said all this in one breath, and Ko Changlin didn't interrupt once. He just quietly waited for him to finish, then gave Suja a complex look. He reached out and tapped Suja's forehead. Silly boy, do you know why in the phrase, protect family and defend country, protect family comes first? Ko Changlin gave him a meaningful look. You're just overthinking things. To be honest, my education level isn't that high, and my ideological awareness isn't as noble as you might think. I only know that if this borderline breaks, my Anna and 2 younger brothers would be in danger. The reason I stand here is to protect their safety. But aren't thousands of small families together what makes our country? Without families, where would the country be? Without the country, where would families be? If you want to protect your sister, then do it. No matter what you face in the future, stay by her side. For you, she is the family you want to protect, isn't she? Besides, who says that people who come to guard the front line must have noble and selfless initial intentions? Old Lee in the next dormitory, when he joined the army, his original intention was just to secure a stable job so he could find a wife back home. Old Yang on bed number 2 across from us joined the army simply because he thought being a soldier was cool. In their generation, every boy wanted to be a soldier. Tall and mighty, how great. Were their purposes noble? Not really. But do you think they would hesitate for even a moment if they had to sacrifice themselves on the battlefield? Suja was stunned. Ko Changlin patted him on the back and pointed toward the vast territory of Desya behind the Border Defense Company. People grow. Perhaps everyone gathered here for different reasons, but when you look at the myriad lights of homes behind the border every day, you'll understand that since we stand here, there are certain responsibilities and duties we must shoulder. Suja stood still like a statue for a long time. The confusion in his eyes gradually faded, and the knot that had been troubling him untied, bringing sudden clarity. He had indeed been overthinking. He wanted to join the Night Watchers just to protect his sister. So what? Who said you couldn't join the Night Watchers for your sister? As for the responsibilities and duties after joining the Night Watchers, he would bear them. Having chosen this path, he would never regret it, regardless of the outcome. Joining the Night Watchers for his sister and being a good Night Watcher were not mutually exclusive. He took a deep breath, stood up from the rooftop, and solemnly said to Ko Changlin, "Thank you, Uncle Changlin. I understand now." Boom. Before his words faded, a thunderous sound came from the distance. The boundary of the time silhouette instantly covered the Border Defense Company and spread toward the misty border to the west. Under the cover of the time silhouette, the mist returned to its appearance from 100 years ago, retreating dozens of miles from the Desya border. Its density increased tenfold, the pitch-black fog approaching the border defense like a beast, emitting a terrifying aura that made it hard to breathe. The mist retreated. What's happening? Seeing this, Ko Changlin jumped to his feet, his eyes filled with shock. Just as he was about to rush downstairs, a stream of light flashed past from the south along the misty border. A fat-faced monk riding on an auspicious cloud stared gravely at the approaching mist. The mist has an extremely strong restraining effect on gods. Does that mean abandoning divine power and falling back to being a demon could avoid its killing effect? The monk muttered to himself for a moment, then turned to look east. I wonder when Monkey Brother will arrive. Lin Chia rode on the somersault cloud, closely following the golden figure wearing a kasaya. Kasaya, somersault cloud. Matching both of these criteria. Apart from Sun Wukong, who had attained victorious fighting Buddha status, Lin Chia couldn't think of anyone else. Regarding Sun Wukong's condition, Lin Chia had never fully understood it. Now having the opportunity to directly interact with the real Sun Wukong from 100 years ago, it was naturally a good chance to understand his condition. He wanted to see what exactly had happened to Sun Wukong back then. Seemingly sensing Lin Chia's presence, the figure riding the somersault cloud far ahead suddenly halted in mid-air. He turned around. An ancient ape wearing a kasaya was frowning while staring at Lin Chia, with confusion flashing in those brilliant golden eyes. It was indeed Sun Wukong. Seeing his true appearance, Lin Chia became even more certain of his thoughts. Compared to Sun Wukong in the hospital, the Sun Wukong before him appeared more divine, without that faint demonic aura, and without those piercing, chilling eyes. His golden fur emitted a faint halo, and those eyes were like autumn lakes, calm and undisturbed. He stood there like a true victorious fighting Buddha, rather than the great sage equal to heaven. Who are you? Why do you also know the somersault cloud? The victorious fighting Buddha frowned as he examined Lin Chia and asked. Lin Chia remained silent for a moment. Just as he was about to say something, the victorious fighting Buddha continued. Are you also a disciple of the patriarch? Lin Chia was startled but quickly recovered and nodded in response. Indeed I am. Sun Wukong's master was Patriarch Subhuti of the Three-Star Cave, and most of his divine abilities were taught by the Patriarch, including the somersault cloud. In Sun Wukong's view, the fact that he knew the somersault cloud meant he must be a disciple of Patriarch Subhuti. There seemed to be no other possibility. Lin Chia had been worried about how to explain his identity, but Sun Wukong had offered this answer himself, so he naturally accepted it. The victorious fighting Buddha nodded slightly without asking further questions. His eyes turned back to the approaching mist in the distance, his brows furrowing as he rode his cloud away at high speed. Lin Chia followed closely behind him. The closer they got to the border, the more Lin Chia felt an indescribable sense of terror, as if something from within the mist was watching him. Lin Chia gazed at the ink-black mist in the distance, lost in thought. He had originally thought that the mist that invaded Desya 100 years ago was no different from the mist he had seen, but now it seemed that was not the case. Previously he had wondered about the legendary mist from 100 years ago that could cause gods to wither and all things to perish. But based on his personal experiences entering the mist several times, its destructive power didn't seem as terrifying as the legends described. Not to mention 2 years ago when the Egyptian gods along with Desya's Fengdu flew through the mist for so long, they didn't seem to lose much divine power. Even human powerhouses like Zhou Ping could walk briefly in the mist without any protective measures. Now it seemed that the world-ending mist from 100 years ago and the mist Lin Chia had seen were not on the same level at all. The mist Lin Chia had seen was grayish-white, while the world-ending mist now revealed through the time projection was pitch black like ink. Even without entering the mist, one could feel the sense of desolation emanating from it. He had a premonition that if he entered this black mist before him, he probably wouldn't survive even a minute. As he and the victorious fighting Buddha approached the mist, more and more Desya gods gathered around them. The thunder god and lightning goddess had bombarded the mist with lightning for a long time without stopping it at all, and their expressions were grim. They flew to the Queen Mother of the West's avatar standing high in the sky and bowed with bitterness. Reporting to your majesty, we have failed. It's not your fault, the Queen Mother spoke softly. Go rest on the side. Watching the two retreat with dejected expressions, the Queen Mother's eyes flashed with helplessness. Her peripheral vision caught Lin Chia approaching on his cloud, and she transmitted a message to him. Lin Chia, come to my side. Hearing the Queen Mother's message, Lin Chia was first startled, then quickly rode his somersault cloud to her side in the high sky. Lin Chia raised his hand in salute, glanced around and seeing that the other Desya gods were focused on finding weaknesses in the mist and not paying attention here, He lowered his voice and asked in confusion. Your Majesty, what is this about? I know what you want to ask. The Queen Mother slowly closed her eyes. I have my reasons for using the Kunlun mirror to replay this scene. Lin Chia pondered for a moment, then tentatively asked, is it related to the continuous sword mountains inside Kunlun Void? The Queen Mother raised an eyebrow, seemingly surprised that Lin Chia could guess this point, and simply nodded in response. Correct. I have been forging swords for 100 years, creating the Kunlun sword ruins, and now only this final step remains. This step is crucial. What's the connection between forging swords and replaying history? Lin Chia was confused. All things in the world have spirit, and swords, being the foremost of all weapons, have even greater spirit, the Queen Mother said calmly. Mortal sword forging only shapes the body, not the soul. Only by forging the soul with intent, allowing it to observe emotions, when emotions resonate with the sword, can the sword be truly forged and sharpened, allowing its spirit to connect with divinity. After hearing the Queen Mother's words, Lin Chia partially understood. The general meaning was that forging the sword's body wasn't enough. One needed to infuse it with intent, and let the sword develop emotion, to truly achieve spiritual connection with divinity. But how does one infuse intent, and let the sword develop emotion? While Lin Chia was deep in thought, the Disya gods facing the mist were already in a state of panic. Several divine shadows rushed out from the pitch-black mist, their divine power auras extremely dim. They fell to the ground like birds with broken wings, bending over and coughing violently. With each cough, large amounts of black mist surged out from within them, their faces extremely haggard. True person yellow dragon, red essence child, fearless immortal. A fat-faced monk wearing a cassock quickly rushed to their side. A ball of Buddhist light flowed from his palms into the three, trying to force out the black mist from their bodies, but it couldn't move it at all. Don't waste your energy. No, purifying altar immortal. True person yellow dragon coughed twice and smiled with a pale face. After you attained enlightenment, it feels strange to call you by this name. How is the situation in the mist, three golden immortals? Not good. True person yellow dragon shook his head. We only flew a few miles in the mist before encountering 7 or 8 waves of strange demonic creatures. Their numbers are far more terrifying than we imagined. If we hadn't returned quickly, I'm afraid after our divine power completely withered, we would have been surrounded and killed by them. The purifying altar envoy's face looked extremely unpleasant. True immortal, I have an idea. Just as he seemed to think of something and was halfway through his sentence, another excited voice came from beside him. Second senior brother. First senior brother has arrived. The speaker was a golden arhat wearing white monk's robes. He looked at the somersault cloud rapidly descending from the distant sky, his eyes showing delight. The purifying altar envoy's eyes brightened and he immediately stood up. Monkey brother. Monkey brother, we're over here. He seemed to have forgotten his identity as a Buddhist envoy, excitedly waving both hands, his solemn monk's face showing an adorably silly expression. The victorious fighting Buddha wearing a kasaya landed before them, the corners of his mouth curling into a smile. Idiot Sandy, are you both uninjured? No, we're perfectly fine. Monkey brother, where's master? The purifying altar envoy curiously looked behind him. Master went south, the mist is advancing faster there, replied the victorious fighting Buddha. His golden eyes gazed at the black mist not far away, his brows furrowing slightly, the hair on his body standing slightly on end. Such evil mist, he muttered. Great sage, please quickly think of a way to stop the mist. The god of thunder and goddess of lightning hurriedly flew over. We've tried all sorts of methods but nothing works against this mist. If this continues, all the common people around will suffer. The victorious fighting Buddha stood on the barren land, looking up at the black mist that filled the sky and earth, rolling toward him. All light was devoured by the mist, like a giant beast covering the sky and earth, bearing its ferocious fangs at all living beings. Before it, the forms of all deities seemed as insignificant as grains of sand. The fierce wind swept up flying sand, making the victorious fighting Buddha's kasaya flap loudly. He snorted coldly, his eyes bursting with spirited fighting intent. I want to see what evil spirit this really is. He stepped forward forcefully, surging divine power mixed with Buddha light erupting from within his body, instantly condensing into a giant ape Buddha manifestation with flowing light. It slowly rose from the barren ground, like a giant supporting the sky, holding up the dim and gloomy heavens. The hair on the Buddha ape manifestation was clearly visible down to the last strand, flying in the fierce wind. It roared at the black mist before it, shattering several small mountains around it. Lin Chia stood beside the Queen Mother of the West, witnessing the emergence of the Buddha ape manifestation, his heart trembling. So this was the power of the victorious fighting Buddha at his peak. Just standing far away and observing made one lose their composure. However, compared to Sun Wukong's equal to heaven manifestation in the hospital, although powerful, Lin Chia felt this Buddha ape manifestation was missing something. The Buddha ape manifestation extended its hand, pinched near its ear, and the next moment a golden staff appeared in its palm, rapidly extending and instantly growing as large as a mountain. It raised the golden hooped rod, the Buddha light around its body erupting violently. Powerful waves of energy carrying dazzling light that was impossible to look at directly smashed toward the rolling black mist in front. With a thunderous boom, the ground beneath split open at an alarming speed. The mist, under the strike of the golden hooped rod, seemed to have physical form and suddenly paused. This strike from the victorious fighting Buddha directly blocked one corner of the mist, but the mist on both sides in the distance continued to surge forward. It was like a rolling river. Even if the victorious fighting Buddha could block one section of waves, the rest would continue flowing forward without pause. But the scene before them meant that the mist was not unstoppable. "Monkey, let me help you." A familiar voice came from the distance, and the next moment a blue divine manifestation rose from the ground, growing until it was the same height as the victorious fighting Buddha's ape manifestation. Yang Jian held his three-pointed double-edged blade in one hand, silver light surging around him like tides, and the vertical eye in the center of his manifestation's forehead suddenly opened. Pure origin manifestation. Under the gaze of that vertical eye, the mist before him seemed to be pressed down by an invisible hand, barely restrained in place, and only after a long while did it begin to move forward extremely slowly. At the same time, at another border, a man wearing a black imperial robe emerged from the netherworld, his right hand holding 6 rotating silver rings, his expression extremely solemn. This emperor arrives late. With a lift of his right hand, the 6 spinning silver rings flew out one after another, expanding infinitely, like 6 circular barriers standing before the mist. With the Fingdu Emperor's intervention, tens of kilometers of mist invasion were immediately stabilized. The pressure on the victorious fighting Buddha and Yang Jian lightened, and then other great Xia deities also took action, various divine lights surging to the edge of the mist, delaying its advance. But delay did not mean complete blockage. The area covered by this mist was too vast, encompassing every inch of Great Xia's borders. Even with the deities joining forces to block the western border, mist continued to pour in from other places. Seeing this, Lin Chia felt extremely anxious. Although he knew everything before him was false, the unprecedented sense of immersion made him feel as if he were truly in the time 100 years ago. "Your Majesty, is there really no way to stop this mist?" "Of course there is," the Queen Mother of the West slowly spoke. 800 years ago, after this palace and the immortals intervened, we basically stabilized the mists spread for hundreds of miles around. With the primordial heavenly lord in the east, the lord of moral virtue in the north and the Jade Emperor in the south, the mist invasion into Great Xia was actually blocked by more than half. But this mist is too cunning. As long as there is the slightest gap, it will pour in, taking the lives of all mortals within a dozen miles in just a breath. It's too difficult to block with divine power alone. What about other methods? Are ancient formations also useless? The ancient formations recorded by the Heavenly Court can indeed resist the mist invasion, but Great Xia's territory is too vast. Even the cosmic star formation of the ancient demon court cannot cover all of Great Xia. I have calculated the maximum coverage of the cosmic star formation, and with full power, it can only protect about 1/5 of Great Xia's territory. 1/5. Hearing this number, a bitter feeling rose in Lin Chia's heart. Protecting only 1/5 meant that hundreds of millions of lives would be lost in the mist. The coverage of this formation might be enough to shelter the entire territory of some Western countries, but for the vast land of Great Xia, it was far from sufficient. This means the only way is to. Before Lin Chia could finish, a resounding voice came from the void in the sky. The Heavenly Lord commands. The great calamity has arrived, all beings suffer. Our great Xia deities have received mortal incense for thousands of years and must now act. After 10 breaths, the heavenly court will shatter its origin, transforming into 9 divine steel bases to guard the borders. All great Xia deities willing to sacrifice themselves shall use their divine bodies and power to forge the nation-protecting steels, establishing an eternal protective formation to repel evil spirits beyond the borders, ensuring the safety of all people and peace throughout the land. From now on, our souls will re-enter the cycle of reincarnation, experiencing tribulations again. When the day comes that the heavenly court is rebuilt, we shall all return. At that time, the divine might of our great Xia will once again shake the universe and return to the world. Fellow immortals, we shall meet again in the next life.